Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating childhood story that honestly has the power to fundamentally shift how you view wealth, work, and even your own paycheck. We're looking at the core lessons from Chapter 1 of a totally groundbreaking financial philosophy, appropriately titled The Rich Don't Work for Money. It all starts with a very relatable childhood frustration and builds into an absolute masterclass on the psychology of wealth. So let's jump right in. Okay, let's dive into this. I want you to really put yourself in the shoes of a 9-year-old. It's the year 1956, and young Robert is grappling with this exact burning question. You see, by a twist of public school's zoning fate, Robert and his best friend Mike attend the exact same school as the kids of wealthy plantation managers, doctors, and bankers. And when Robert isn't invited to a classmate's beach house for the weekend simply because he's seen as a poor kid compared to the rest of them, well, it lights a fire in him. He goes straight to his highly educated father and asks, "Dad, can you tell me how to get rich?" His dad, kinda unsure of how to really answer that, just smiles and says, "Use your head, son." So what do two highly motivated 9-year-olds do with that advice? Well, they start a manufacturing business, of course. They spent weeks knocking on neighbors' doors, asking them to save their used toothpaste tubes, which, believe it or not, back then were actually made of lead. They stockpiled them, built a makeshift foundry right on a hibachi grill, melted down all that lead, and literally poured it into plaster of Paris molds. When Robert's dad and his friend walked up the driveway later, the boys were covered in white dust, proudly cracking open the molds to show off their very first batch of lead nickels. His dad gently had to sit them down and explain that what they were doing was actually called counterfeiting. No way around it, the business was shut down on opening day, ending in a pile of white dust and dashed dreams. Section 1. The quest to get rich. Two fathers, two different paths. While that first business attempt was a hilarious failure, it was actually a massive turning point. Robert's highly educated dad, who we'll call Poor Dad, realized he genuinely didn't know how to teach the boys about making money, so he pointed them towards Mike's dad, a man who owned warehouses and restaurants who would eventually become the rich dad. And this brilliantly illustrates their contrasting philosophies. One approach represents Poor Dad's conventional advice: study hard, get a safe job with benefits. It's advice driven completely by a desire for safety and security. The alternative is Rich Dad's unconventional wisdom: learn how money works so it works for you. You see, he didn't want the boys to just fit neatly into the system. He wanted them to understand the actual mechanics of money so they could transcend the system entirely. Moving right along to Section 2, Working for Peanuts, a simulated taste of life. So, the boys managed to secure a meeting with Rich Dad early on a Saturday morning. He agreed to teach them how to make money, but on one very strict condition. He flat out refused to teach them sitting in a classroom. He told them, "You work for me, I'll teach you." The job? Dusting canned goods in one of his convenience stores. The pay? A staggering 10 cents an hour. And keep in mind, even in the mid-1950s, that wasn't exactly life-changing wealth. With the store doors wide open to the Hawaiian heat and road dust blowing in all day long, it was 3 hours of excruciatingly boring, repetitive work every single Saturday. Man, the reality of physical labor sets in fast, doesn't it? After 3 weeks of sweating in the heat, missing out on his precious Saturday baseball games, and earning a grand total of just 30 cents a week, 9-year-old Robert reached his absolute breaking point. He felt completely exploited. He marched right into Rich Dad's office, fully prepared to demand a raise to at least 25 cents an hour or quit on the spot. But here's the catch. When Robert aggressively confronted him, Rich Dad wasn't angry at all. In fact, he told Robert he sounded exactly like most of his adult employees. He was intentionally delivering a highly simulated taste of life, telling him, most of the time, life does not talk to you. It just sort of pushes you around. He explained that when life pushes, most people simply let it push them, or they push back by getting angry at their boss, their spouse, or their paycheck. They never actually realize that the frustration itself is life trying to teach them a lesson. Section 3. The Trap of Two Emotions. Understanding what really drives us. Now, this sets up the absolute psychological core of this entire explainer. Rich Dad pointed out that most people just aren't guided by logic when it comes to money. They're driven entirely by two primal emotions. Let's walk through the endless loop those emotions create. Step 1, get up. Step 2, go to work. Step 3, pay bills. Step 4, repeat. Millions upon millions of adults spend their entire lives completely consumed by this exact, inescapable cycle year after year without ever once stepping back to question where it's actually taking them. Rich Dad defines this crucial term for us: The rat race. It's a lifelong pattern of working for money controlled entirely by fear and greed. Think about it. First, the terrifying fear of not being able to pay the bills forces people out of bed and into a job. Then, once they finally get that paycheck, desire, or greed, starts whispering in their ear about all the wonderful toys, vacations, and comforts that money can buy. So what happens? They increase their spending, the fear naturally returns, and this cycle continues. Essentially, their emotions are doing their thinking for them. Rich Dad used this truly brilliant metaphor. He compared the average worker to a donkey dragging a heavy cart, chasing an illusionary carrot dangling from a stick just in front of its nose. The owner of the donkey is getting exactly where he wants to go, but the donkey is just chasing a mirage. Money acts as that carrot. It blinds people from taking a moment to logically ask if working harder and harder at a job is actually solving their long-term financial problems or just providing a temporary band-aid. Section 4. The power of working free. Breaking the emotional dependence. To ensure the boys truly absorbed this lesson and didn't just become donkeys chasing carrots, Rich Dad took a seriously shocking next step. He demanded they go back to dusting cans, but this time for absolutely $0, working for free. Now, why on earth would he do that? Because it forced the boys to completely stop expecting a paycheck. The whole exercise was designed to sever that knee-jerk emotional reaction of trading time for a coin in their pocket. By completely removing the pay, he forced them to use their heads to look around and to spot opportunities that everyone else totally misses because they're so hyper-focused on an hourly wage. A few weeks into their unpaid labor, Rich Dad took them to a park for what was basically an intense psychological test. He sat them down and offered them a raise. First, 25 cents an hour, then $1, then $2. Finally, he tempted them with a massive $5 an hour raise. Now, in 1956, that was a ridiculous fortune for a kid. Robert's heart pounded. His brain absolutely screamed at him to take the deal. But he looked at Mike, and they both stayed completely silent. They didn't take the bait. Their silence proved to Rich Dad that they had successfully broken their emotional dependence on the paycheck. So, the crucial point is, by staying silent, they finally understood Rich Dad's core rule. The poor and the middle class work for money. The rich have money work for them. By refusing that massive hourly wage, the boys demonstrated they were actually ready to step out of the rat race. They showed they were ready to learn how to create true wealth, rather than just endlessly trading their precious time for a paycheck. Section 5. Having money work for you. The comic book library triumph. With their minds now fully open and no longer blinded by the pursuit of a dime, the boys finally spotted an incredible opportunity. While working for free at the store, Robert noticed the manager, Mrs. Martin, cutting the top half of the covers off unsold comic books for credit and tossing the rest. The boys saw their opening. They struck a deal with the distributor to keep the discarded comics, piled hundreds of them into Mike's basement, and literally opened a library for the neighborhood kids. Charging a 10-cent admission for 2 hours of unlimited reading, they even hired Mike's younger sister for $1 a week to be the head librarian. They had ingeniously turned waste into a highly profitable, self-sustaining business. Now, what's really interesting here is the sheer contrast in their results. On one hand, you have where they started, earning a measly 30 cents for 3 hours of grueling physical labor in a hot store. On the other hand, look at the result of working for free and using their heads, generating $9.50 per week of passive income. And you know the most vital part of this success? The library made the money even when they were nowhere near the basement. They had successfully created an asset. Their money was finally working for them. And that brings us to the profound, lingering thought of this entire explainer. I want you to ask yourself honestly right now, is money running your life or is your money working for you? Those two 9-year-old boys learned the hard way that blindly chasing a paycheck only feeds the fear and greed of the rat race. By pausing to master your emotions, by breaking your dependence on wages, and by using your mind to truly observe the world around you, you can build assets that generate wealth all on their own. So are you just a donkey chasing the carrot, or are you learning how to build the cart?